If I should die, and you should live, and time should gurgle on, and morn should beam, and noon should burn, as it has usual done. If birds should build as early, and bees as bustling go, one might depart at option from enterprise below. 'Tis sweet to know that stalks will stand when we with daisies lie, that commerce will continue, and trades as briskly fly. It makes the parting tranquil, and keeps the soul serene, that gentlemen so sprightly conduct the pleasing scene. The first time I met death, I was 3. I remember I was at a pool at the top of a slide. I still had my floaties on, and I wasn't a very good swimmer. My family was all around telling me, go down, but I was scared. People were beginning to get tired of waiting, so I took a leap of faith. Then suddenly all I could see were bubbles and blue. My floaties had floated me the wrong side up. I was top heavy. Had floated me the wrong side up. I was top heavy with a big head and little legs, and I kept trying to bob up, but I couldn't manage. My legs were flailing, and all I could feel was the water filling up my nose. And I remember thinking, someone will save me. My mom or my dad. They had to be watching. But I was panicking. I couldn't breathe, and I was realizing that I was drowning. My hand hit something, and I took the chance and grabbed on. Tiny hands with a grip tighter than hope. It was the bottom of my mom's swimsuit. I can still feel the relief crying into her hip, asking, "Where did you go? Where were you?" I looked up, and I saw a stranger on a completely different side of the pool. And I was alone. My tears dried up, and I grabbed onto the ledge, very embarrassed. But I remember that feeling of alone. The second time I met death, I was 6. My great-grandfather had died, and we were in Taiwan, and my grandmother and mom pulled me aside to talk about what was happening. They were preparing peas for dinner on the table, and they rested on day-old newspaper snapping away. There, they showed me a grainy video of my grandfather, sobbing and bowing his head on the ground in front of the casket. I remember wanting to take the pain away, wishing I could somehow find a reality where he didn't hurt. The third time I met death, I was 16. My grandfather died, and my dad couldn't be there for the funeral because of work. The third time I met death, I was 16. My grandfather died, and my dad couldn't be there for the funeral because it was halfway around the world and he had to work. It was late. I was busy with homework, finals or something. I went downstairs, careful of the creaks, because everyone was quiet. I went downstairs, careful of the creaks, because everyone was asleep. But I saw a little light on in my dad's office. He was sitting, bent over, crying, and shaking, but very quiet. I didn't know what to do. I had never seen him so weak. I could only hug him. He shook in my arms, and I pulled him close. And after my shoulder was wet with his tears, he mustered out a "thank you, get some sleep," and trudged upstairs. He was never a talker, more of a fixer. When I was little, and I'd had a bad day, he'd sit with me while we watched the bath drain. And he'd tell me that it was all of the hurt in my heart draining away. That night, I wish I could have done the same for him. The fourth time I met death, I was 20. It felt like we were old friends by then. No one had died, but for years I wanted to. I would imagine it every morning, and death felt peaceful, felt comfortable. One day I drove 2 hours away to a river, hoping I'd fall in and drown. But while I drove, I remembered all the times Death and I had met before, and all the meeting we had left to do. It was here that I negotiated with him. Would we be meeting once more, or would this be the last? And while the sun set, I thought of all the in-between. I thought of the sun on my cheek, the cuts on my hip, the nudes on my phone, every sleepover I'd ever been to, the smile my mother gave me while she snapped peas. I remembered the shivering of my dad and the bowing of my grandfather. I thought of all my failures and successes, mistakes and memories, all the plans I had or couldn't imagine having. When I got to the river, I looked out at the rapids, the feeling of alone still clinging to me. But so is that memory of my first meeting with death, and of my little hands grasping for life.